Okay, everyone, it's okay to check the standings now. One third of the season is over, and it's time for the summer score.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all the Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, I'm begging you to call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. And on Instagram, I am your pal Sully. I am at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube channel. Put your comments down there below, and I swear I am going to read them, even the ones that are not kind. We are recording this late on the 26th day of 2024. You're probably hearing it on the 27th. Who knows? You may be binge listening to this show. I would love that if someone said, "Yeah, I went back to the first episode. I'm just binge listening." Spoiler alert, what happens at the end of the season. Spoiler, what happened in the last season? The Dodgers won. Let's first of all talk a little bit about the trivia question from the other day. What pitcher threw the most innings for the 2021 World Series champion Atlanta Braves? And Big John 08865 got it correct. It was Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, who has been an absolute flopperino this year with the Baltimore Orioles, although give credit where credit is due, he pitched well today. He 6 innings and gave up only 2 runs. And there you go. He wound up getting the I think he got the victory. But he pitched the most innings for the World Series champion Braves in 2021. He was the pitcher on the mound when the Astros won that World Series that we're not supposed to mention in 2017. Later, when he was a member of the Rays and he was pitching against Houston in the postseason. I know a lot of people were booing the Astros and rooting for Charlie Morton to beat the Astros while pitching for the Rays. I wonder how many people saw the irony of that they're booing Charlie Morton because they're booing the Astros because of them winning the 2017 World Series under dubious circumstances. But Morton himself was the pitcher who clinched said World Series. Well, we boo uniforms. Let's also talk a little bit about who owned baseball on the 26th day of May 2025. Um, Kevin Gossman. It seems like it's funny. The Blue Jays are a very very strange team. They've been on a little bit. They've climbing towards 500, but they're still a sub 500 team. And yet it seems every other day a Blue Jays pitcher was the one who owned baseball. Kevin Gossman threw eight strong innings. Sorry, let 1 run, and the Blue Jays doubled up the Rangers, who have been an odd disappointment this year. Ryan Nelson pitched into the seventh inning, allowed 4 hits and no walks over 6 2/3 innings, and the Diamondbacks beat the Pirates 5-0. Tyler Stevenson, let's give him some credit. The Reds catcher homered and got 2 more hits, and the Reds beat the Royals 7-4. And Dalton Varsho, who still has the best defensive highlight of the year, he went 3 for 5 with a homer to help Toronto beat the Rangers 2-1, getting half wobs. Jesus Sanchez reached base 3 times, including a home run, but the Marlins lost on a wild pitch in extra innings to San Diego 4-3. Adrian Hauser kept the Mets scoreless for 6 innings, so naturally they relieved him, and the White Sox bullpen fell apart 2-1. Someone explain that to me. The pitcher's throwing a great game, and you relieve him like that. I know there's stats and everything to point out, but it's not exactly like the White Sox have the 1990 Nasty Boys in their bullpen. Vinny Pasquantino got 3 hits in the Royals' 7-4 loss to the Cincinnati Reds. I have to look that up right on. It was in Cincinnati. The game was the game was in Kansas City, where that means the man with the best job in baseball had a fun day today. And if you don't know this, Vinny Pasquantino was a popular player with the Kansas City Royals. and his name vaguely sounds like Sasquatch, Pasquantino Sasquatch. Okay, fine. There's a dude at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City who is dressed like a Sasquatch. And when Vinny Pasquantino does something positive at the plate, and he got 3 hits today, the Sasquatch walks along part of the outfield, not in play, and to the delight of the fans, which means that there is a guy who is dressed as a Sasquatch for each game at Kansas City. And he's sitting there, he's playing Wordle, he's checking YouTube videos, and so it's like, hey, Doug, Vinny's up. Oh, geez, got to put the hat on. Got to put the hat on again. Looking out, did you get a hit? Got a hit. Okay, got to walk out. That is a fantastic job. How's your son Doug doing? I heard he got a job in Kansas City. He did. He's involved in baseball. Is he making trades? No. He's dressed as a Sasquatch, and he walks along the outfield when Vinny Pasquantino gets a hit. I'm sorry? You heard me. I know, but I don't know what those words mean in that order. Best job in baseball. Let the record show I'm willing to be the Sasquatch, but I'm not quite big enough. I'm not quite tall enough. By the way, the last person to get a half wob was Braxton Ashcraft, who, let's hear from him. He made his major league debut today with the Pittsburgh Pirates and threw 3 shutout innings out of the bullpen. The Pirates lost the game 5-0, but hey, good job for Braxton Ashcraft, who pitched well in his big league debut and save the bullpen. All right, I say this often. I say you can't really start checking the standings of Major League Baseball until Memorial Day is in the rearview mirror. Well, guess what? Memorial Day is in the rearview mirror. And now you can start looking, I think you can start looking at the standings and start to see, okay, who are we? A third of the season's gone by. I also do some things, I do Who Owns Baseball. I just went through the latest one. I have another little Sully metric that I do each day, which is called the Summer Score. And the Summer Score, I keep track of teams who, when you wake up in the morning, like when you all wake up and it's the 27th day of May 2025, and you look at the standings, if your team is right now a playoff team, you are going to get points added to your Summer Score. And how it works is this. For the first between Memorial Day and the end of June, every day your team is in a position of a playoff spot, whether it's a wild card, tied for a wild card spot, or division lead, you get 1 point. It gets bigger, it gets more important the closer you get to the end of the season. Between June and July, every day you're in a playoff spot, you get 2 points. Between beginning of August and the beginning of September, you get 3 points every day you're in a playoff spot. Between the beginning of September and the end of the season, you get 4 points for every day you're in a playoff spot, plus 1 point for every day that you're 1 game out. In other words, if you're still in a playoff spot and it's September, you are getting a huge boost of excitement. And what I do is I create this stat because you can check at the end of the baseball season which teams basically gave their fans a perfect summer, meaning starting at the day after Memorial Day, which teams told their fans every day you wake up, your team is a playoff team. And then you'll see that there's some teams that have very high scores that miss the playoffs altogether. And you're going to see that there's some teams with really low scores that want to go into the postseason. Now, when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about who's in the Summer Score now and take a look at last year and see which teams gave their fans a summer but didn't give them a postseason run. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money, you start building wealth. Now, when I started using Monarch, I didn't realize how many times I was double subscribed to some things or had a subscription that was still going on. I haven't used this since before the pandemic. What am I still paying for that for? Now I budget smart and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check finances, track spending, and make long term goals. And I can have additional accounts with my partner, maybe your spouse, maybe your brother, maybe you are linked up with a guy dressed as a Sasquatch at the Kansas City Royals game. You can track personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Okay, so I explained how the scoring situation works, and it may sound complicated, but it works out because if you have a if you are in a position for a playoff spot in June, that's nice, but it's a lot more exciting and a lot more meaningful if your team is in position for a playoff spot in September. And essentially, boy, the reason I started doing this is because I do believe that a baseball team does not owe its fan base a championship. Because if that were the case, then only one fan base would be happy at the end of each year. Only one fan base could look at the year and say that was a success or that was fun. And I don't want to live in a world like that. I don't want to live in a world where there's one happy fan base and 29 miserable ones. What a baseball team owes its fans is a fun summer, a summer of excitement, a summer of happiness, a summer of joy, and a summer of waking up and thinking, "Hey, my team's a good team this year. They're a playoff team. Something could happen." And that's when you build up the summer score, you see which teams gave their fan bases the best summer. Now, last year, between May 28th, 2024, and the end of the season, which was October 1st, 2024, when they had the wild doubleheader between the Mets and the Braves, there were six, that gave their fan bases a perfect summer, which meant that every day they woke up from Memorial Day to the end of the year, their team was in a playoff spot. Here were the six teams that had a perfect summer. To no surprise, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. The Cleveland Guardians gave their fan base a perfect summer. The Milwaukee Brewers gave their fan base a perfect summer. The Philadelphia Phillies gave their fan base a perfect summer. And guess who also did? The Baltimore Orioles. A perfect score last year was 313, and those six teams finished the year with perfect scores. Now, a couple of teams came pretty close. The San Diego Padres had a 286 score. There was a couple of days in June and a couple of days in July that they fell out of the playoff race, but they came roaring right back. The Kansas City Royals also had a near perfect summer. They missed a couple of days in June, a couple of days in July, and for the rest of the time, they were a playoff team. The Atlanta Braves had a weird year last year where from May until basically September, they were a playoff team. And then, like every other day, they were a playoff team, not a playoff team, playoff team, not a playoff team. And they finished with a 251 score. The next highest score in the American League, the fifth highest score last year, belonged to the Minnesota Twins. The Minnesota Twins had a score of 278. Between May 28th and September 22nd, every single day, the Twins were a playoff team, but they fell out of it after September 22nd, right around the time the Detroit Tigers showed up. The Detroit Tigers wound up with a summer score of 39, which was just 1 point higher than the Red Sox, who I bet you forgot even was in position for a playoff spot at any point. The Seattle Mariners also had a really high summer score last year. From May 28th to July 20th, they were in it every single day. And they were in it for most days until mid August when they fell off a cliff. The Arizona Diamondbacks had an incredibly high score last year of 226. They were a playoff team almost every day from June until September, with a few days here or there where they fell off. And they wound up being tied in terms of the standings with Atlanta and New York at the end of the year. but because of head-to-head matchups, they sat it out. By the way, the Mets, who got to within 2 wins of the World Series, didn't even show up on the summer score board until mid-July. By the way, there were a couple other teams that I bet would stun you if I tell you for at least one day their fan bases said, "Oh my God, we're having a summer." The Cardinals last year had a summer score of 66. The Giants had a summer score of 15. Last year, the Cubs had a summer score of 8. The Reds in the middle of June popped into the playoff picture and then fell right out. The Washington Nationals in June popped in the playoff picture and fell right out. And for one day on June 12th last year, a Pittsburgh Pirate fan could wake up and say, "Oh my God, we're a playoff team." Bet you forgot that. Well, and that kind of reflects what it's like for those fan bases. For some of some of the fan bases, they had a really fun summer, but their team fell off a cliff. Minnesota, Seattle, Arizona. For some of them, they had kind of a up and down summer that finished with an absolute flurry. That would be Detroit and the New York Mets. And a couple of them made cameos that completely left your mind. Well, we're going to have that this year too. There are a lot of teams that are crawling in for a playoff spot right now. And there's a bunch of teams that you look and you say, like, okay, going to the beginning of the year, I'm sure I picked the Texas Rangers to win the American League pennant. They have a losing record. I picked Baltimore to be a playoff team. They're one of the worst teams in baseball right now, although they are in a 3-game winning streak. So maybe the calls to bring back Buck Showalter may be a little bit premature. There are teams like the Atlanta Braves and the Arizona Diamondbacks who are not above 500 right now. Although give the Braves credit, they got to such a horrific start. The fact that they're even hovering around 500 is really something. Between the last playoff spot in the American League and the Angels, and there's all but 3 teams in the American League right now are within 3 games of a playoff spot. The Angels, by the way, climbed all the way back to 500, and now we're on a 3-game losing streak. The Yankees beat them last night, and I wonder if that great winning streak they had recently was an aberration. The Tampa Bay Rays are on a 6-game winning streak, so they are not listening to the A's excuse of, "Hey, we're playing at minor league park. What are you going to do?" When we come back, we're going to take a look at the first edition of the Summer Score. Here are the teams that are going to have at least one. And if there are going to be teams that have a perfect summer score this year, they are going to be some of the teams I'm going to list now. And it's going to be interesting to go to the end of the year and see which teams were playoff teams after Memorial Day and which teams will be playing in October. Now, mind you, the summer score also includes ties. So if you're tied for a playoff spot, you still get added to your score there. So these are the initial teams for the summer score of 2025 in the American League. The team in the American League with the best record is the Detroit Tigers at 35-20, and the Yankees are the second one, who are tied in the loss column, 2 games back in the win column. So the Tigers and Yankees have images of a perfect summer score dancing in their head right now. Another team getting the first spot in the summer score would be the Seattle Mariners, who are the leaders of the American League West. Then there are 4 wildcard teams. I know there will only be 3 at the end of the year, but there is a tie. So here are the last 4 American League teams that are going to have the summer score on this the first day we're keeping track. You got the Cleveland Guardians. You have the Minnesota Twins, who looked dead in the water just a couple of weeks ago, but a fantastic winning streak has catapulted them into a summer score spot. So Twin fans, you may have a summer. Astro fans, you may have a summer, as they're tied for the last wildcard spot along with the Kansas City Royals. The Tampa Bay Rays are a game out. The Blue Jays are 2 games out. Boston, even though they're on a 3-game losing streak and sub 500, are only 2.5 out. This is going to be a crowded American League, and we all know the Rangers can pitch. They're going to have to make some trades for some bats to climb back into this. We'll see if the Angels can do something or not. Hopefully, they can do something because not because I live in Southern California, but I love Mike Trout. I want to see them do something. All right, let's move on over to the National League. The surprise of nobody, the Los Angeles Dodgers are one of the teams. However, what may be a surprise is right now they would be the 3 seed in the National League in the playoffs because they have an identical record to the Chicago Cubs, and the Cubs have beaten them head to head. So I kind of find that interesting because people were asking me at the beginning of the year, do you think the Dodgers are going to be the greatest team in baseball history? And right now, they're not even the best team in the National League. The Phillies are also one of the teams, and they, with their 642 record, that's the best record in baseball, even with their loss the other day to the Sacramento A's. The wild card teams in the National League are the Mets, the Giants, and thanks to their walk-off wild pitch victory, the San Diego Padres. Now, the Cardinals are breathing down everyone's neck. Again, the Cardinals got off to a crap start, but they went on a big winning streak, and so there you go. And Arizona, Cincinnati, and Milwaukee, and the Braves are within 4 or 5 games of a playoff spot right now. It's unfolding the way I thought it was going to unfold. The American League has a lot more parity. There is no super team in the American League, not even the Yankees. The Yankees look very, very good right now. And there's no getting around the fact that they look very, very good. But there are holes to their team. They're not guaranteed a spot anywhere. Although right now they seem to be the only American League East team that's trying. But we knew that in the American League, there's would be a lot of potential contenders of flawed teams. And we also knew that the National League was going to be really top heavy, and it appears to be with the Phillies, Dodgers, Mets, and Padres and Cubs, and a lot of teams that are, and a bunch of bad teams and a few mediocre teams that may sneak in. So we'll see which one of those teams that are not starting the year with a perfect summer score, will dust themselves off and become a big part of it. The Rangers are the team I would be most confident in because they do have the pitching. They do. If they acquire 2 bats, I think they'll be fine. In the National League, the Diamondbacks really should be because they have the good pitching, but they're sitting at 500. And the Braves have a lot of talent as well. And we'll see if maybe the return of Ronald Acuna Jr. will lead some new things. But there you go. There you go. With that is the beginning of the summer score. And you can start looking at the standings with no sense of guilt. And it's going to bring us to today's trivia question. And we talked about teams that had really good summers but didn't reward their fan base with a trip to the postseason. I think we all remember, or at least most of us remember, that the last year before a wild card was implemented on the playoff system, the San Francisco Giants won 103 games in 1993 and missed the playoffs because they lost to the Western Division Atlanta Braves. No one is able to describe why that made any sense whatsoever. But here's a trivia question. What was the last American League team to win 100 games and miss the postseason? Put the answers right down there, and there you will go. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long, get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night right here on the Locked On MLB YouTube feed and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talking about owning baseball and the summer score and knowing we're a third of the way through this season and some teams have to start looking in the mirror and asking, what the hell are we? This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.